now in a sec. I'm your host, Jamal Mansour, again. This is Mountada Debates, and the delay that has been recorded right now is all my issue. There has been some issue with my tech. I would allow my two wonderful panelists to introduce themselves very briefly right now, and then we'll go into a sort of deep dive discussion into what happened at the UNGA. First of all, I'd like to welcome both Wael and Yasser, and I'd start with Wael. Please kindly introduce yourself.
Good to be with you. Thanks for having me. Wael Zayat. I am the CEO of a national Get Out the Vote organization for Muslim voters named Engage. I am also an advisor for the Syrian Forum here in Washington, D.C., and a former U.S. diplomat focusing on Middle East policy. Good to be with you guys.
Thank you very much. So, an underachiever. Yasser, introduce yourself, please.
Yasser Tabbara. I'm an attorney by profession. I'm a co-founder of the Syrian Forum. Been active in the Syrian cause for quite some time, and just returned from New York, where I had the privilege to participate in many of the sort of historic firsts for liberated Syria at the United Nations General Assembly meeting.
Thank you both, gentlemen. So, as you can see, I was making a very backhanded joke at Wael here. Both are very achieved, very highly active, proactive, and involved in Syrian issues pre-Assad fall and currently, both of whom have a lot of insight that they can offer us. And we're going to start with you, Wael. For us as Syrians, Syrian Americans, but also non-Syrians who are interested in post-Assad Syria, with your vantage point as an ex-U.S. diplomat, I know that you have no affiliation anymore, and you've made it clear. I just wanted to reconfirm this. But as a former U.S. Diplomat, you do have insights on how the American thinking might be going within the Trump administration right now. How was this visit, this UNGA appearance, and everything that surrounded it, side events, and so and other activities? How might it have been viewed by the U.S. and what does it mean in the global scheme of things?
Yeah, when I was at the State Department, I served as the senior advisor to then U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, Samantha Power. So, I have come to appreciate the role that the UN plays, but also the U.S. involvement in the UN, mainly through the Security Council and also its major engagements and funding for major UN programs. And so to see the president of Syria and the foreign minister of Syria and other officials come to New York after years of isolation and sanctions, of being really a pariah next to North Korea, where not only were they invited, but the Syrian president addressed the General Assembly. And really, from my perspective, I was also up there in New York. He was the hottest ticket in town. Everybody wanted to see him, get access to events that he was at, or the foreign minister, Shaybani. Which is wild, really. It's a continuation of this honeymoon period. Now, I know we've had many hiccups along the way over the last 8-10 months with what's happened in Syria, for example. But the honeymoon is still continuing. If you look at how he was treated, there was, again, a very surreal event that Concordia hosted, one of the side events there. It's a major global gathering where
with General Petraeus, right?
General Petraeus. Now, when I was in Iraq serving at the U.S. Embassy, General Petraeus had just left. General Osler replaced him, but Petraeus was in charge of the, counterterrorism operations, the surge in Iraq. And at the same time, the overlap was that now President al-Shara was in an American jail in Iraq. And here they were on stage, and General Petraeus is calling him Mr. President.
And
This is
gushing.
you can't you really, if you were to write a book or a story, a fictional one, people would say that's really crazy, but that's exactly what happened. And so the symbolism was there. I think the substance was there. The Syrian delegation had many meetings, many bilateral meetings, many meetings with UN officials, but also other governments that were there. And this is a clear proof that Syria is completely out of its international isolation. I think everyone is looking at helping this country transition. Again, there's a lot of issues, but in terms of diplomatic, political scorekeeping, so far, the Syrian government has done very well.
So, yay. In your view, this was a yay.
Yeah, I mean, look, I could nitpick a lot of stuff for you, and I worked on these things. I've even coordinated visits of the Secretary of State to UNGA with other colleagues. Yeah, this was a home run.
Cool. Thank you very much, Wael. Yasser, on the flip side of this, and again, we're kind of role playing here so that because both of you are overlapping in terms of interests. I mean, not only are you buddies at the SF, I'm your buddy as well, but
what kind of debate is this, man? I don't understand.
Is it? I think he's trying to pit us against each other somehow.
No. What I'm trying to say is sometimes there's overlap, but we're trying to kind of look at things from different perspectives, as we usually do when we debate internally as well at SF. And it's a very good opportunity for people to watch us do that kind of mental math and mental exercise. So I'd like to pick your brain here, Yasser, on the Syrian side of things, and specifically the Syrian American community, because you two are like one of the multiple hats that you wear as a multi-talented guy, is that you are a part of the community by belonging, as an active member of that, but also proactive, working on these issues. As a Syrian American, what do you think that meant to the community? We've seen the videos. Again, I utilize the term gushing over Petraeus speaking in glowing terms, not only calling him His Excellency and Mr. President, but also speaking in terms of like displaying personal liking and so on. Other than the videos that we've seen, the Instagram reels, etc., that are kind of, you can't make this up, sort of type of hype. In reality, behind the cameras, without the IG moments, how was this perceived on the Syrian American community side, and what did it mean in ultimate terms, according to you?
I mean, anecdotally, there was I had the privilege to be also present in one of the community events that one of the receptions that were thrown to welcome the Syrian delegation into the U.S., into New York. And part of what was expressed, let's just say, by some of the community members is that this like deep sense of pride. We have, I think, all seen this footage of this guy standing on a chair and saying, may God, praying for the president, basically, for ridding Syrians from or being the cause to rid Syrians from decades of darkness and dictatorship and all that stuff. And I think that, to a general extent reflects, a great deal of the community's sentiment. People were elated, were very proud as Syrians just to be walking in New York. And when you talk to community members, obviously, Syrian Americans have gone through this long period where it was difficult to, almost identify themselves in this dual, identity and say that I'm a Syrian
It was a burden at a certain time, correct?
Yeah, exactly. And I think we're at the point where it has become sort of a source of pride for many understandable reasons. But obviously, that's the overwhelming general sentiment of many people that have been active over the past 15 years in the Syrian American political scene. But also you see people that have expressed also concern as to what has been taking place, whether it's, you know, not getting to the point where we all hope as Syrians to have gotten, or to have a clear road towards in terms of the general territorial integrity of Syria, specifically the Northeast issue, what's been taking place in Sweden, and the
So let me
coast.
build off of that, Yasser. Let me just piggyback off of what you were saying here.
Sure.
In terms of specifically Sweden, we've seen other videos, and I think it was reasonable for us to assume that there would be some kind of pushback, that not everybody was as gushing, that the Syrian American community is a diverse community with some diversion in allegiances, but also in terms of political views, especially of what this huge transition in Syria's history as a modern nation state represents. Not everybody's going to be on side here, and you must have been able to perceive some of that. Or was it completely to you as part of taking part in that and being surrounded by all these elated voices and this kind of there was a celebratory mood, and that's basically built on good groundings. Were you able to view these interactions that were less than optimal, especially from people belonging to the Druze community in Sueda, some of whom actually trucked themselves from other places in the United States and Canada to go to New York to protest? Were you able to see them? And then was the Syrian delegation, you think, able to see them? How big an issue was it? And was there some kind of lesson to be learned or some kind of sentiment that you took over from that?
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, you cannot deny the fact that they were actually there. In terms of size, they were a much smaller crowd. And honestly, the general perception is that they overlap, these types of communities or these types of activists, they overlap with, you know, a similarly positioned Syrian Americans prior to the fall of the Assad regime, where there were other lobbies that were attempting to work to preserve and rehabilitate the Assad regime. And so it's very murky and it's very confused. It's not very clear, really, who's leading what exactly. And I'm by no stretch of the imagination an expert on dissecting that scene. But one has to say that, you know, those who maintained actual active relevance over the years and who have seen the fruit of a lot of their labor realized are those who were welcoming the Syrian delegation, the official delegation with the president and the foreign minister and others. And they seem to be the much louder, much more authentic, if you will, voice in New York. Now, we've seen, you know, several interactions. I mean, I personally have seen both groups as I walked by before we had the privilege to enter the big, you know, General Assembly hall and listen to our president speak for the first time at that, represent Syria for the first time at that particular forum. I did see that there were some interactions, and later on, I got to learn that some of these interactions were actually genuine engagement. People were trying to talk to each other, and I mean, yes, there were some ugly sort of gestures here and there, but at the same time, there were, you know, voices of reason where some people were trying to engage and sort of explain their positions to the other side, and I think that's very encouraging. And if it, from my perspective, it doesn't happen in the context of, you know, Syrian American communities that have been exposed to what it actually means to be diverse and free and engaged in public affairs, I don't know where it would have happened, and that gives me cause to still hope that hopefully we can move forward and continue to look forward.
Excellent, thank you, Yasser. Well, I just want to redirect this to the American, because I'm really curious. I'm asking this because I think a lot of people are curious. I mean, you would know, as any Syrian, everybody knows everything about American politics and then end up actually knowing absolutely nothing about American politics. Everybody has an assumption, presupposition, that they're going to project their own proclivities over what America wants and doesn't want, and then end up basically not only getting back to square one, but regressing in terms of understanding, and then not serving themselves or anyone around. And in this vein, you were in the halls. You know how the sauce is made, and you know how the decision makers in the United States think, what the priority lists are, and so on. My question to you is, the UNGA, or UNGA, as the UNGA is our darling term, the UNGA happened. It was an unmitigated success, according to what you said to me. What does it mean, again, in terms of American view? Because I think there is an element to the United States watching what President Shara is doing and keeping score. Is that a correct assessment? And if that were a correct assessment, then what does this good performance, if I may put it in these terms, mean to the future of American support for Shara's government?
Yeah, look, I think U.S. views towards Syria, or really any foreign policy issue, is multi-layered. You have different stakeholders that are coming at this from different perspectives with different intentions. That's the U.S. government. Now, it just happens that the most powerful actor, his name is Donald Trump, and he's the president. And he has been convinced of, the benefits of welcoming Syria back from the cold, integrating it into the regional economy, and perhaps positioning it as, if not an ally, but a very friendly country to do business with and to coordinate policies with. And that's largely thanks to the efforts of the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia and the President of Turkey, to some degree, the Qatari government. Those three actors have really prevailed upon him to help lift sanctions on Syria, and to shake the hands of President al-Shara, as we all saw. Now, the implementation is where the devil in the details is. And here you have the U.S. bureaucracy, which is essentially decimated because of the layoffs and because of the politicization of what's happening. State Department, Treasury, USAID is gone. And so implementation and actualization of this relationship is now not as robust as it could have. Now, a second actor that's very important is Ambassador Tom Barrack. He is Trump's ambassador to Turkey, but also the envoy for Syria. Essentially, he's the de facto ambassador to Syria right now. And this is an older gentleman, an experienced real estate mogul, a very
plenipotentiary. Is that a good way to put it?
Sure. Yes. He is the regional ambassador right now, and he moves 100 miles an hour. He doesn't take no for an answer. He wants to get things done. That makes him the right person in this moment. However, still, there are hundreds of U.S. officials and obviously, the agencies they represent that you need to bring along to operationalize this relationship, whether it is to transform us from a country that sanctions Syria to one that does business with Syria. So you still see slowness in this area, promoting U.S. investments in Syria, encouraging U.S. companies to go to Syria, but also deepening the security relationship, the intelligence cooperations. All of that is going to take some time, let alone pumping in some serious development aid at a time where the U.S. is more or less out of the aid business. And so there are challenges here, but I think the performance, if we were to call it that in New York, definitely helped. It did not hurt whatsoever, in my opinion. As a U.S. diplomat, from looking at this, I think they did very well. But having said that, I remember I said there are multiple layers involved here and different stakeholders. There are those who are genuinely cheering for Syria and they want to see it succeed.
Mm-hmm.
There are those who are keeping scorecard. They're kind of in the middle. They're maybe a bit unsure, maybe even not trusting of the current government, but they want to see them succeed. But they're keeping score to basically determine which way they're going to fall on this. What happened on the coast, Sweda, what may happen with the SDF is very important to them. And then you have a group.
Wael, just determine such as what player? Just identify one player for me out of that group that you just identified.
You have members of Congress. For example, my Senator Chris Van Hollen here in Maryland.
Yeah,
I count him as supportive, but keeping a scorecard.
Right. He wants
to see the country succeed. Yeah, and so, but he's not like gushing all over it and is like, great, these guys are going to be our best friends. Now, there are some who are there, but I also say there's a third camp which absolutely does not want to see this government succeed, and they are terrified of a economically powerfully Syria in terms of the competition it will present, particularly to Israel. And here you see, basically, what Netanyahu has said when he, called the government terrorists and all that stuff. Really, they're speaking to an anxiety. This is not a security anxiety. This is a power competition anxiety. And their supporters here, and here I don't want to get too nuanced, but you also have straight up the, Islamophobic Orientalists in our society who, for them, any independent Islamist kind of government is automatically a jihadist, right? And obviously the history of this current government doesn't help, but they have obviously renounced terrorism. They are now, speaking of developing the country and being inclusive, but that doesn't matter to those who traffic in Islamophobia and who can never bring themselves to accept that, a majority Muslim country, an Arab country, can chart its own course and become powerful and independent. To them, that's a big, big no-no. And so for them, they want to see this government fail, and they want to help any efforts that would undermine it as well. And those personalities exist in Congress, but they also exist in the very Trump administration.
Such as, I'm thinking Gurkha.
Yeah, look, the easy one for me is Tulsi Gabbard.
Tulsi Gabbard, yeah.
An easy one. Now, we haven't heard much from her lately, but she's a very public supporter of Assad and an opponent of this current government. And obviously, their nascent success is not something that she welcomes. Now, clearly, Tom Barrack and the president and those around them are managing this relationship. But in the back of my mind, and should be in our back of my mind, any missteps by this government gives that other side ammo. And just remember, in 3 years, we will have a new president in the United States.
Yes. But my question, just a parting
yes, sure.
remark that I would like you to clarify for me. Do you think that the elements that, because part of, as you said, you dropped the N-word, Netanyahu here. Netanyahu is sort of kind of on, of two minds. Sometimes he is dogmatically renouncing this government. Sometimes he's willing to do business, but he doesn't trust them. He's trying to exact the price, etc. And he has leverage in the United States, and he has a lot of institutional friends and pressure points that he can apply, and he does sometimes at will. Is Israel, this current Israeli government, playing footsie with Tulsi and the Tulsis of the world to try and make life more difficult for the nascent Syrian administration trying to get out of this? Or are we seeing things that are we conspiracy theorizing here?
I think there's a long, well-proven history in terms of the let's call them, I personally don't like to, cast generalization. I'm going to say the far right in the Israeli body politics has long made bed with white supremacists and used the fear of Islam in the West to weaponize governments and policies against Muslim immigrants, Muslim politicians, right, and movements in the West, right? And we've seen Netanyahu do that. He's done it with Viktor Orban. He's done it with populists throughout the world. He's done it with the right wingers here in the United States. And so it's kind of part of what they do, which is to scare Christian America and Europe of the invading Muslims to justify what they do. And so these are not conspiracies. It's just part of their policies and part of their approach to this. And the thing is that I think that the Syrian government has rightly taken matters in its own hands by engaging directly on this issue, right? We have this taboo in the Arab world. It's weird that we somehow can't talk face to face with our enemies, and they've done that. That doesn't mean they're conceding. Now, I think the Israeli government must be pressured by the Trump administration. Without that, just like we've seen with the Gaza deal right now, if there's no pressure from the Americans, whoever that may be, Netanyahu's going to keep bombing Syria because for them, a fractured Syria is preferable to a unified Syria, a strong one.
Right, right. But it's good to see also that part of that sleeping in bed with the extreme right in the United States is sort of kind of backfiring. I mean, Marjorie Taylor Greene, but also Tucker Carlson are very public about the way that they hate the fact that Netanyahu seems to be dragging the United States by the throat to where it's a little hyperbole, but there is this kind of pushback I can see.
You're starting to see it for sure.
But we also have to keep in mind that that right has their own reasons to want a failed Syrian state as well. And I think, this is, as well as was speaking, I was thinking about maybe three different currents that as Syrian Americans, if we're serious about continuing the work in Washington, D.C. and in New York, towards ensuring maybe a healthier transition into something more stable, something more sustainable in Syria, in terms of governance, in terms of representation, etc. I think we need to be very much aware of potentially at least three different currents that have maybe three different motives to want to see a failed Syrian state. So you have obviously the maybe pro-Israeli lobby or more specifically, the current Israeli government headed by Netanyahu and his extremist sort of view on how to deal with issues. You have the maybe more ideological right wing, Gorka and others who are very unforgiving when it comes to the background and the history of HTS and the current authorities in Damascus, and could never see them as
reliable partners or people have
or rehabilitatable in a way that makes them an ally or a partner to a power like the United States. And then you have the potential Democratic administration that will come after Trump if Democrats regain the White House, with all of their complexities and pivot towards trying to I don't know if an Iran deal is rehabilitatable or not, but you have that sort of view of the entire region that that started with the Obama doctrine and continued with the Biden administration, and that empowered certain elements within the Syrian chessboard, if you will, and that that's going to prove to be extremely challenging once we have a new administration in town. So especially if it's a democratic administration, and I believe that Ambassador Barak himself has been struggling with some of these, the relics of the previous administration at the State Department that have been bureaucratically resistant to a lot of the things that he's trying to push. So if there is a message to Syrian Americans and those who have been engaging in lobbying, the Hill and Washington D.C. in general, other than the obvious, try to unify your efforts and coordinate all that stuff, we really need to look at this as a very short-lived opportunity throughout this period that we have right now.
Too fast.
Yeah, I mean, or rebuild. Do not feel like that you've reached the finish line. You're nowhere near the finish line yet.
Don't uncork the champagne yet.
Absolutely, and I think it's the type of work that needs to be sustained, that needs to be doubled down on, that needs to be built in a very strategic way. And I don't know. I mean, I hope that people realize that.
Yasser, you've just answered my question before I even asked it. You read my mind. Thank you for really doing this.
That's because we have one less layer to worry about, you and I.
Tell that to the guy with the hair. Just wanted to say, Wael, my question to you really was, I really need to understand. Part of you've been able, I think, to visit Syria back from 2024 up until now, at least once. I don't know if you've done that trek or not. I haven't checked. But if you've been able to visit, there was a lot of euphoria at the beginning, and then the euphoria started to subside. People inside Syria are eager to see the fruits of the suffering of the past 14 years, but also of the opening. There are lots of things, as you said, this was a great performance on world stage. There was a comeback, and as you said, it was a good outlook. Why isn't this paying off in terms of money on the ground? Why are American monies, American investments, American companies, or European companies that are being stopped from coming there because the Americans are not coming? If we have Tom Barak walking around with the foreign minister inside the halls of the UN and attending a few meetings with him as if kind of mentoring or sitting with. There's a big investment by parts of the American administration. This ought to pay off in terms of trickle downs, so that I, as an ordinary everyday Syrian, can actually see the fruits of that labor, and I don't. So what's blocking? What's the big stoppage here? Is it the guys who are sitting on the fence and keeping scores? Is it the Tulsi Gabbards of the world who are blocking this? What is standing between this stellar performance, this comeback enforced to the UNGA, and me feeling the impact of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a number of reasons here. I wouldn't say that nothing has happened. I mean, there's been some major investment announcements that you've heard since the last few months, more focused on energy, the rehabilitation of Damascus Airport, building a subway system in Damascus, and other projects. These are kind of the large, high-ticket items. These are major infrastructure projects. They're going to take years to be implemented. But as soon as they break ground, I assume there'll be construction opportunities, building opportunities for local electricians, for the food service industry, for the hospitality industry. I think that's going to come online for American businesses in particular. Unlike other countries, even European countries, the U.S. government cannot direct private sector. Now, we'll see. Trump may try, but generally speaking, we're not like the French. We can't tell Airbus, go here, go there. Boeing is an independent company and they have to make their own decision. And so money is risk averse, right? Now you're seeing some of the more smaller players that are more risk tolerant go on business delegations, start to look for opportunities in Syria. But I think the more established businesses in America are going to need to know if there's a marketplace for them. Syria is a poor country. It's a broken country. Syria doesn't have a functioning banking system. It doesn't have an electronic transfer fund system. Some of that is happening, but also there is complete ignorance about like the laws and regulations of a country that's been closed off for decades. The questions of taxation, repatriation of profits. Like, how do you do that? So I think just basic education about what is really going on in there. Is it safe to make an investment? Who do you need to talk to? I mean, I'll tell you what, I know that some of the intrepid investors have gone to Syria so far. They come back saying, God, we talked to so many folks. We're not sure who's making decisions. It doesn't seem they're sure about who's making decisions. And there's still also a lack of transparency, I think, about how do you exactly get a business deal in Syria done if you don't have to go talk to somebody who's, maybe connected to the government or not. There's still those views that things are not very clear and safe, right? This is understandable. Syria has not been open to the world like this ever. And that's going to take some time. I don't think there's a political issue here. Now, you do have a very practical issue, which is the Caesar Law. The Caesar Law is basically sanctions that Congress put in place that will punish other countries and other businesses, even if they're not American, if they deal with Syria by denying them access to the U.S. financial system. Now, this law is still on the books, and it's been suspended by the president, but it has not been removed. And if you want to do any capital investments anywhere, you need assurances for many years. And suspension is only for 6 months. However,
you need all clear.
So there are efforts right now in Congress to repeal this law, and it may happen. But until then, I think American businesses, the big ones, are not going to make big investments in Syria yet. And also the question of, I'll go back to it, is who do you talk to get a business deal done in Syria? And what are the clear laws and protocols that you have to abide with? I know they're there, but American businesses still don't know. Now, I know there's some efforts to explain these to them. There's some business councils that have stood up to facilitate this. That's good. But it's going to take time. And for the average person on the ground, 90%, poverty, very high unemployment, 2 hours of electricity a day. It's a ticking clock here because this government is going to have to show that they can deliver.
Yes.
And they have to do it by standing up small and medium enterprise in Syria. It can't be just the big billion-dollar deals from other countries.
That's another problem, Wael, because like from the outlook, it seems like that's not on their big focus right now. What I want to do is I want to utilize the last few minutes because I know that you guys have a hard stop rule on the top of the hour, so I'm going to have to condense a lot into a little. I'm just going to ask you, Wael, are you optimistic, hopeful, cautiously, or gung-ho, or are you pessimistic? And if yes, what gives you the biggest reason for hope? And then I'm going to transfer the same question to answer him.
We have to be optimistic because none of us imagined a day like this would come in our lifetime.
Yes.
That Assad would go away and that, largely speaking, he would be toppled with, I'm not going to say no violence, but pretty minimal violence and bloodletting here. I'm somebody who worked on this conflict. I never imagined that whoever would liberate Damascus would do it without just blood everywhere, honestly. And I think many of us were afraid of that. Having been there, I've been there twice, by the way, since its liberation. I think, the fact that this wall of fear has been broken, the heavy burden of an oppressive totalitarian Stasi-like state is gone. I am optimistic. Now, do I feel that all the ingredients are there to reach that, promised land of a healthy economy, secure border, and civil peace and reconciliation among Syrians? No, we're not there. Am I sure we're going to get there? I'm personally not sure. But I think the hardest part has been done. We couldn't get to where we are without removing the Assad regime. The Assad regime now is gone.
It's the sine non qua. It's the condition without which none of what we're talking about would have even been possible.
Correct. And so I think everyone who worked and fought really hard for 14 years to liberate this country should be prepared to work just as hard to make it a functioning country.
I trust that you're going to be on the front line of that, while I know what you're doing, and if anyone really knows what you've been contributing, they would be very thankful of your efforts. Yasser, same to you. Are you optimistic, cautious, pessimistic? If any of these, what gives you reason to do that?
Well, I'll try to answer the question in a minute and 30 seconds here, because that's all the time that's, I think, left. I'm cautiously optimistic for sure. I think the source of my optimism is very personal. The fact that I can walk around in the city that I grew up in once again. This is something that I haven't been able to even dream of over the past 15 years. The thought in my head was that maybe there will be a time where my children get to see the city that I'm from, Damascus, and whenever I go there, I'm still at this belief. So it's very, very personal for me. Now, the last thing that I maybe would want to leave everyone with here is it's very important for us to realize that it is both a mixture of internal and external reasons as to why we could fail or succeed as a country. And we just cannot put more weight on one than the other. And so, for example, you talked about with Wael about the why we haven't seen the trickle down effect of these contracts. We will continue to suffer from the phenomenon of bank de-risking, for example, for a very long time to come, until we as Syrians are able to establish a safe and reasonable investment environment that has contractual clarity, to borrow from a dear colleague of mine who recently was in Syria visiting and was really shocked by a lot of the confusion that is taking place over there. So a lot of internal issues need to be sorted out. Obviously, repealing Caesar and other issues that are external are extremely important, but we also have to look inwards.
It's not enough
for us to move forward.
Correct? It's not enough. It's again the necessary but not sufficient condition for us to actually show what our own mettle and basically be able to put our money where our mouth is. Okay.
Exactly.
Again, I cannot tell you how bad this is that I can't have enough of this conversation with you people. It's so interesting and intriguing. I have a billion questions for you, Wael, but I'm guessing it's going to have to wait until another time.
No, I'm happy to whenever you want to chat. Happy to. Thank
you very much, and I'm really thankful of your presence today. I know how busy both of you are, especially Wael right now. I'm pretty cognizant of your busy schedule, and Yasser also has pushed aside a lot of commitments to make this. So thank you for making it happen. I'm sorry for my misstep technically at the beginning. I don't know what was happening. Canada, man. But thank you for making it today. Thank you for explaining all of these things. Thank you for the great work that you guys are putting up there on behalf of the Syrian Forum, but also on behalf of the Syrian American community and Syrians generally. I'm hoping that we could have a recurrence of this in the near future, so that we can have maybe another milestone to talk about, and then also assess and analyze. Thank you for everyone who is watching Syrian Forum. Keep following our social media feeds to check out our new and upcoming episodes. Thank you for all your contributions, and have a blessed weekend.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
عن جد شكرا. Thank you ياسر. أنا بعرف إنك